You have to go through stretching periods in order for you to grow. And I feel like that has been what this season has been for me. 10 years in one season, you get comfortable, now you're in a new season, and now I'm in this extreme acceleration of stretching and tension, and it's making me better.
All right, guys, welcome to something new. You know, we've done a lot of books, we've walked through different series, but now on YouTube, I want to do some conversations. And I was actually having a cup of coffee with Landon. This is Landon, he's my pastor. I was having a cup of coffee with him a couple days ago, and we started talking about tension, changing seasons in life, in our growth journeys, and experiencing tension. And I thought some really great insights came out of that. So today we're in a coffee shop, and I thought what better to do than to talk about and kind of revisit some of the stuff you and I talked about. So Landon, meet everybody on YouTube.
Hey, everybody.
Everybody on YouTube, meet Landon. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, first I'll say this is such a tremendous value, everything Reese is doing with these YouTube videos. If you haven't watched the previous ones, go back and watch them. Can you believe this? Every single day he's producing content for us as leaders to watch and consume, to grow and get better. So go back and watch them. But yeah, I'm a pastor. Get the privilege of being a part of Crosswalk Church with people like Reese and Landon, and it's a pleasure to be on the channel today.
And you haven't always been our location pastor. It's a pretty recent change. What did you do before that?
Yeah, so for 10 years, I served as our church's youth and young adults pastor. As a part of that, I oversaw our Bible college and kind of the next generation of our church, raising up leaders in our church. And then for about the last 5 years of that 10-year period, I also wore the hat of the executive pastor of our church, just giving care to our team, care to our staff, and just generalized whatever is needed type of stuff for our church. So it was a great season.
Now 10 years, that's a long time to do something. So my first question for you as we kind of start thinking about this tension of transition is you probably got into a rhythm, 10 years of doing that, 10 years of investing in people, 10 years of having processes and a certain role, and then it changes.
Right.
Then you transition into something new. So what was some of the tension in that change? Maybe somebody who's watching is experiencing some tension like that. What did you feel?
Yes, the beauty of being somewhere for a long time and doing a similar role for a long time is you do develop annual, monthly, quarterly, weekly rhythms that help you to produce, that help you to thrive in your role, help you to find confidence even in what you're doing because you have found when to push on the gas pedal, when to release, when to take the rhythm of rest, when to push. And when you do transition out of that, something I didn't really take into consideration when this transition was happening from going from 10 years in one thing, and then now I serve as the location pastor of one of the locations of our church. I didn't think about how the rhythms and the patterns, the annual, the monthly, the quarterly, the weekly, how those things would change. And then now on the flip side, it's been about 6 months and I'm still trying to discover some of those things that I had built up over time in my last season.
So if you could take us into what's one thing specifically that changed? Maybe they're wondering how does a role, maybe they don't know the pastor role in youth and in location. Can you give us one thing that's changed for you?
Yeah, I would say there's been good things and things that are not negative, but because of how I've been navigating it, it's caused some tension, really the conversation, what we're talking about here. One of the positive things, I'll start with that first, is in the previous season, my wife and I, we have 2 kids. At that time, we had only one. And for the majority of the 10 years, we had no kids. And so there was some rhythms, like for example, in youth ministry, if you're unfamiliar with how a church works, usually churches have an additional night of the week where they have a youth service for middle schoolers and high schoolers, or a young adult service. And my wife is involved in our worship department, so she still oversees that, which is another night of the week. We had multiple nights of the week that we were pouring out and investing, which was great for that season. And now in this season, we don't have those commitments. And so there's actually a rhythm of every single night of the week, we get a chance to sit down and have dinner together as a family with our 2 daughters. That's been a beautiful shift with this new season. However, with the other things, finding the new rhythms of when, like I would know during different times of the year when there were times to push, when there were times to grind, when there was times to accelerate, when there was times to push myself, even knowing where my own limits are to in a healthy way push. And now in a new season, I'm rediscovering those things and trying to find, and I made a reference to Reese the other day. I love fitness. I love being active. My wife is a coach at Orange Theory Fitness. I go to Orange Theory, and they structured the classes in a way, and this metaphor I hope would kind of land here in a second as I describe it. The classes are developed with intervals of when to push and when to rest. And the more that you go to these classes, the more you sort of recognize the patterns, and you can gauge your efforts because you know when the rest is coming. For this new season, the patterns have shifted. I'm not as familiar, and so it's hard sometimes to gauge when those moments of rest or relief or reprieve are coming. And so it's hard to gauge when to go all out, when to push your hardest, and when you're going to have that opportunity to pull back.
So what I hear you saying is there are some benefits to the new season.
For
And
sure.
I think we should always look at what the benefits are. And especially when the dynamics of your life are changing at the same time.
Yes.
Now you have 2 kids. So married and 2 kids, go back all the way 10 years ago, none of that was actually a reality. So your time could be dictated differently. But now your family dynamics have changed, and you probably appreciate those dinners together.
For sure.
Right? And that
For
time
sure.
together. But change also does complicate things.
It does, yeah.
Because it pushes against something we're used to
Right,
in our rhythm.
right.
I love the Orange Theory analogy. I loved it yesterday. It hit hard. And just remind me how they're structured, because you have the all-outs. I know you
Yes.
mentioned that to me yesterday. How's that workout actually structured?
So it's interval training, for those who might be familiar. It's HIIT style, a high intensity interval training. And what I've discovered, which is no secret, but because I go all the time, I know it's coming, but they have different ways that they encourage you to pace the workout. And I remember my first time ever going to Orange Theory, and I had no idea how the structures of the classes were. It's an hour-long class, and because I didn't know how to pace my effort, my energy, I burned out within the first 15 minutes. And I was just giving it all I had because I didn't know how the structure was going to be. Now, 6 or 7 years later of doing these workouts, I know that when you're on the treadmill, for example, there's different paces. There's your base pace that you can go at all day. There is a push pace that's more than your base, but it's not an all out. And then they have the all out paces. And I know every single time that there is an interval of going all out, every single time they will give you, as a gift, a walking recovery period. And so I know if I can just get through this all out period, it'll be 30 seconds, it'll be 45 seconds, it'll be 1 minute. But on the other side of it, I will have a minute, 90 seconds to walk, to recover, to get ready for the next interval. And that's kind of how it's structured.
So in this transition for you,
Yeah.
did you get the walk time after the all-out pace,
great
or are you
question.
still looking for that?
It's a great question. As a lot of people who are in transition may feel, transitions are not always like super clean. Sometimes they are. If they are, that's a gift. For this one, it was relatively clean, but there was a handoff period of kind of letting go of one season and picking up the next and figuring out what is going to be still in my hand or on my plate and what is not going to be. And so in that process of wanting to leave the other season well and set that person up for a successful season ahead of them while stepping into a new one, there was a little bit of tension of me holding both responsibilities at some points at the same time. And that did create a challenge of wondering, okay, I feel like I've been going all out for 6 months. When is this walking recovery? When is this relief going to come? And I do believe that those moments, as stressful as they can be, the phrase, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. I have felt a stretching. I don't think it's healthy to do it long term, but I would say, looking back for the last 6 months, I've felt a huge amount of growth through this pushing. And I think really, as I sit here right now, I am actually starting to feel this kind of walking recovery, this relief period. But the thing about these recovery periods is it's always to let you recover, to gauge back up for another push. So I'm kind of waiting for the push to come. So I don't know if that answered your question properly.
It does. We were talking about this morning in our group. And
Yes.
I'm training for my first marathon.
Yes.
Well, my first marathon's
Beast.
it's in a few days, but I just started training for my first marathon, which is probably a problem in itself.
Yeah.
But one of the things, I knew I wasn't going to be able to hold a jog for 26.2 miles. Like, I knew that's not going to happen.
Yes.
So I decided I need to mix in running and walking. And so this is
Yeah.
kind of what we're talking about here. And you kind of have to figure out what your pace or cadence is. You got to know that maybe for some people, they might be able to run at a nice pace 8 minutes and walk a minute. Some people might need to run at a nice pace for 6 or 4 minutes and walk a minute or 2. You got to find out what's right for you to help you sustain it for a long period of time.
Yes.
I think coming into a new season, it's very tough to find that right pace.
For sure.
Now, my marathon is in a little over a week, so I hope I find that right pace. But pro tip, don't wait till the
Don't wait
last
till the
minute.
last minute.
Right, yeah, don't wait till the last minute. Okay, here's the $1 million question. You could do it all over again.
Yeah.
You flash back to right when you decide to make a transition into a new role. What's one thing you would tell yourself?
That's a great question. And that is something I think I've probably been contemplating for the last 6 months, is how would I have prepared myself for this if I would have known, because it was a transition that happened that I didn't really have a lot of preparation for. Wondering, how would I have prepared myself for this if I had had that opportunity? Or one thing I would tell myself if I could go back. That's a great question. I don't know if I have this $1 million answer to the $1 million question.
Don't give me $1 million. Just give me
I will
you were
say,
sitting down with yourself, what would you have
Yeah,
said?
I will say, I know this is an incredible YouTube channel that's reaching a lot of people, both faith-based and secular, or non-religious, non-faith-based. I am a pastor. I believe in the Bible, and Reese invited me on here, so I'll just
Let it rip.
I'll take the liberty.
Let it rip.
A verse of the Bible that I've been contemplating a lot, as recently as this morning, is James chapter 2. The first couple verses, he says, actually it's James chapter 1, I apologize. Verse 2 or 3, he says, "Consider it pure joy when you face trials of all kinds, because they produce perseverance. And then perseverance produces wisdom and maturity in your faith." And that is something that I've been thinking about in this last season of, I've been pushing, there's been challenge, there's been a plethora of different things that you navigate when it comes to a new season. And James tells us to consider it joy because it's producing something in you. And that is, I think, the hope that I hang on to. And I would encourage anybody, if you're feeling a discouragement or you're feeling a sense of stretching or tension, really what we're talking about today, it could just be that something is being produced in you that you may have not been able to recognize if you had stayed comfortable in the previous season. And so, yeah, hopefully that, I don't know if that answers the question. That's something that I've been processing through. You have to go through stretching periods in order for you to grow. And I feel like that has been what this season has been for me. 10 years in one season, you get comfortable, now you're in a new season, and now I'm in this extreme acceleration of stretching and tension, and it's making me better.
You know, John Maxwell says, how you view things is how you do things. And so I think if you could sit down with yourself, what I hear you saying that you would tell yourself is you're about to go through a hard season. You're about to go through a big change.
Yeah.
But it's leading somewhere.
Yes.
It's going somewhere. And in the book of James, it really talks about making you perfect. Not perfect as in you don't make mistakes, but bringing you to
into
fullness.
full maturity. Yes.
That's right.
Yes,
Bringing you into fullness. And that word patience or perseverance or endurance, it all leads in that direction, right?
Yes.
So they say practice makes perfect. It's actually perseverance that makes perfect.
That's right.
And you've got to prep yourself that, hey, you're about to go through some hard things.
Yes.
And so I think that's a really good reminder. If you're on the
Very
front
good.
end of going into a new season, how you view things is how you do things.
Yep.
So view it as, I know I'm going to go through hard things, but it is making me better.
Yeah.
I love
really
that.
good.
Well, that's a little bit of our first part of our conversation. I want you to tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm going to ask Landon about that previous decade, about what he wished he would have known before he went into that previous decade. I'll see you then.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh,
Is
that
that
was
good for you?
great. Yes.
Good.
Oh, I wasn't recording. No, I'm just kidding.